Welcome back to Talk to Me,
the podcast. Today we have Cole joining us in our studio, and we are going to learn about growing up in a small town and taking that into great success into the big city. So please join us and listen in and learn what it is to be successful.
Two, three. Bam! Welcome back to Talk to Me,
the podcast
with Maddie
and Mel.
And today we have a special guest,
Cole.
I was going to have him say his name.
That's all right.
Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
I'm Cole.
There we go. So Cole, you took in, we just met just a few minutes ago, but you gave me a pretty good glimpse into like a little bit about your story and everything. And I think your story is really beautiful because you really attribute a lot of your success and where you're at today as a person to the people in your lives who's your family. And so, can you kind of just give a little background to our audience as to how you grew up?
Sure. I grew up in a small town, about 200 people, 250 people.
That's small, Maddie.
When people try to ask me to explain, I'm just like, there isn't a stoplight. There's just a couple of stop signs. That's it. One gas station, a little tiny country store that has like overpriced milk and bags of chips and everything like that. If you really want groceries, you have to drive like 40 miles.
So where do the kids hang out?
They don't.
They don't? Okay.
Yeah, because there's not really any kids.
There's no kids. Okay.
I mean, there's a couple here and there, but for the most part, the majority of them live again, 30 or 40 miles away. It just kind of depends, where you live in this small town. Because the small town, you have to realize it's not like a conglomerate amount of like homes near each other. Like everybody's pretty like secluded.
Oh yeah.
Because they choose to live that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Very, very rural, mountainous area. So you can kind of picture the kind of people who would want to live that type of life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah. So my mom's a school teacher. There's a little tiny school there. It's kindergarten through 8th grade. About 60 kids go there. Again, the majority of the kids that go to that school come from this other town because the education, there's a lot more exposure because the classes are obviously a lot smaller. So when you get to the next like level of education, you're more ahead. And then my dad worked in a mining town a couple of hours south. So he was gone anywhere from like 7 to 8 days at a time, but then he'd get like 4 or 5 days off to like come home and, spend time around the house. So go ahead.
So I have a question about that. So when we were talking earlier, you talk about you being an athlete, and he's an athlete in college too. So how do you go from being in such a small environment and getting like the talent to take into, I'm sure you played for your high school and everything, right? Uh-huh. So, I mean, but you were playing smaller schools. You were playing, so how did you take those moments and get to play for college? That's something that I think a lot of people, even in large towns, strive to achieve and never do. So I'd love to hear how you made that happen.
Well, again, when you grow up in an environment like that, there's a lot of like tasks and responsibilities that you're going to have that most kids probably don't have, like doing things around the house. You know what I mean? Uh-oh.
Whoa. Whoa, guys.
We're doing things on the weekends, like going and cutting wood and like, general maintenance and stuff like that around the house. Like,
okay, I feel like I'm being targeted here.
You got to rake pine needles. You got to make sure the place looks good. And don't get me wrong, I didn't like doing any of that stuff. But it's like, you have to do it. So.
And it's manual. Yeah,
so you pretty much have to choose to like adopt an attitude where you either hate doing it on a daily basis or you just kind of figure out like, well, this is kind of like my fate, so I'm going to have to like try and figure out a way to just like enjoy it and be a little bit more, I guess, what's the word that I'm looking for? Make it more convenient or like easier, I guess, right? So that sort of translated into like a competitive type of thing for me because it's almost like you want to finish it faster so that you're just done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then you can go and do things that you're like wanting to do as a kid growing up. So when the time came where you actually start playing sports in that local like elementary school, so when you're in fifth fifth grade through eighth grade, you play in a league where the boys play flag football, and then you play basketball, and then you would play. It was track and field for my first 2 years, and then my last 2 years, so seventh and eighth grade. Then it translated to like soft tossed softball.
Oh, okay.
But there's also like little league, like baseball and stuff like
Yeah.
that in that city, a little further away. So I obviously participated in that. So I was more familiar with like those kids growing up in that area. So by the time I got to high school, it kind of like translated. Like,
kinda easy,
yeah, people
but
already
yeah.
knew me, but it was just kind of like, yeah, that kid from Alpine. And I'm like, I don't want to be that kid from Alpine. Like, my name's Cole. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you're gonna know who I am.
Yeah, you don't want to be tagged
For sure.
from the kid from small town, right? Yeah. So, I grew up in a small town. We talked about that, but my small
Small
town
town.
was 5,000. So we had Little League in our town. We had multiple schools, so there was a lot more opportunity there.
Okay.
So you've taken in, you honestly, you went away to college, and your mom was is an educator to this day, correct?
Correct. She teaches seventh and eighth grade, all subjects.
And how many years has she been an educator?
Almost 30.
That's cool. So Maddie would love to have her come down to Desert Mountain. she would love to have her as an instructor. I will tell you that. And then
Please.
when you went away to college, how did what she taught you as a kid? Because she was your teacher, right? At points.
So she was actually on my teacher for 1 year.
Okay.
And that was the hardest year of my entire life.
Wait,
Do I call you mom or do I call you Mrs. Caffeine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you went away to college, how did what she taught you as an educator help you in college?
Definitely not to procrastinate.
That's a tough one.
It is.
I still do
And we
that.
can and
It's
you know
hard
what? We
to
can
not
kind of
do
like
that.
we can come back to that one if you want, because I don't want to like get like super off subject obviously, but there is a lot of like study and like, conclusion behind procrastination and how some people kind of like manage it and handle it. So I'm not really somebody who's like opposed to it. But for me, I'm a pretty like organized person, so I like to like finish things on like a time frame of like I'm gonna do this and then this and then this. So like I set like small goals to achieve like really big goals, and that's something that I like always learned from her, because anytime I ever watch her work, a lot of the things that I've learned and that I've like kind of like illustrated towards other people and just like in my own life is just things that I've like witnessed like my own mom and dad do.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's,
there are greatest educators just overall, right? Whether it's in a classroom or outside of a classroom. I mean, our parents are the people who really do mold kind of what we know about the world, what we know about the environment, and what we learn from the environment.
right,
So,
your habits and everything.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So that's really cool. I think that's great that, your mom dedicated herself for so many years to education too. I think that's something that I really hope there's a lot of people out there that are willing to make those types of commitments, because our kids really need those people that are committed to the cause of really helping shape, the society, young
Yeah.
society, honestly. So that's pretty cool. Maddie?
I'm like, wow. So, what do you do now? Like,
So right now I manage about 20 locations that rent U-Haul trucks third party. So I work for U-Haul. I'm called an area field manager. That's my title. So there's two different types of managers in our, well, there's actually three different types of managers in our systems. There's an area field manager or an AFM, and then there's a general manager who manages one U-Haul center. And then there's somebody that's called a traffic control manager. There's a lot. You know what? I take that back. There's more than just three manager positions. There's a lot of positions.
There's
in U-Haul.
always a lot of
Just go to
management.
uhaul.com
In any
and just
large company, just letting you know, there's several.
just go to
levels.
uhaul.com and look at applications, and there's probably 100 pages. Anyways, I'm in charge of making sure that parties outside of U-Haul, so like a gas station, a convenience store, a smoke shop, basically any kind of business that has their own property, can rent U-Haul trucks and trailers if they'd like to customers. And the reason why we do that is because it's more convenient to our customers, because moving is stressful and everybody wants to be able to go and pick something up that's the most convenient to them, right?
No,
So
yeah.
my job is to make sure that these establishments are following our policies correctly and that they're providing the best customer service that they possibly can to somebody, right? Not only
Yeah.
are they a representative for U-Haul and its business, they're essentially partners with us, right? So their business is just as important as ours is. So the way that they conduct their business and the way that they handle customers is basically a direct reflection of how they handle their own business.
I think that's really great though too, because small businesses are struggling. I mean, there's a lot of problems out there with small business. You're always going to have problems with small business because that's what small business is, right? It's individual. It's trying to make as much profit and take care of your employees and give them as many benefits and things like that. But you're actually giving them an additional opportunity to make additional revenue and to take advantage of an asset that they have that is sitting there that they're probably not taking advantage of.
Correct.
So I think that's really great at first from a small business standpoint for you to be able to really help them grow and honestly keep them probably in business, because I write insurance and I'm seeing a lot of businesses struggle with the additional costs of everything, and so anything that brings in some additional revenue that does not have a ton of expense behind it is really what companies are looking for today. And so I think that's great that you're bringing that to small business.
It gives them a lot of traffic too, just new traffic. So if somebody goes into a store and let's say they sell, I'm trying to think of an example.
The smoke shop.
Sure, right. So somebody moves into Phoenix and they're into, smoking, or like they like to, roll their own cigarettes or something like that. Like now they're dropping off a truck at a smoke shop where they know that they can go and pick up like their disposable pens or cartridges or whatever they're called. Their tobacco, their glass, whatever it may be. So
they're also meeting the owners or the people who are probably proprietors of that business too.
Yeah.
So they're developing a relationship with people that are local as well. So
Yep.
I think that's really great. So
You know what else is really great?
Oh my gosh. Here it comes, guys.
Our merch and this podcast. So please go follow us down below at TikTok at Talk2Me the podcast, Instagram Talk2Me the podcast, and go
Spotify.
and Spotify Talk2Me and
Spotify.
Apple.
Apple. Oh my God, Talk2Me. Oh my God. Google Talk2Me. And please go get our merch at our website talk2mepodcast.com.
See, that's the great plug for small business right there too. So if we only had the land, Maddie, we could be actually renting U-Hauls and making more revenue that way too.
Oh God darn it!
We don't have a brick and mortar.
Fill out an application online.
So I'm sure those small businesses need a leader, like, to help them get through the process and to understand things. Some of them maybe don't have the business acumen, especially if you're talking about a very small mom pop type of store, convenience store, or even just market. So, how do you draw the line as to when you're helping them with their business, get up and running and stuff like that, to where you don't like overstep and you know how people are about their businesses. It's very personal to them. So how do you help them understand like what they need to do to be successful in what you provide?
That's a good question. So I feel like most leaders, when they're trying to train and develop somebody to increase their skill set, they should be setting like small goals for them, as in like, don't overwhelm somebody with a bunch of information. You can only teach somebody one or two things at a time. So when I go and revisit these locations between a period of, and you have to think, I'm always readily available for these guys anytime they need any help. So if they call me and they need help with something like that, it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm providing that support for them. When it comes to the improvement of a certain skill or something like that, you should be teaching somebody when, I'll give you an example. If somebody calls in and they're trying to book a reservation to rent a truck, these are the questions that you need to ask. And they have a prompt that makes it very quick and efficient, right? And it makes them sound like a moving professional, even though they might have no idea about moving, like zero. But it makes them sound professional. So we want them to just improve on one thing at a time, right? Because if I'm like, I need you to be better at booking reservations, I need you to be better at checking in trucks and cleaning them, I need you to be better at taking this phone call and answering this type of customer's question if they're upset about something, I need you to be able to tell me if there's something wrong with the truck.
Right.
Like, you can't just overwhelm them with a bunch of information. You know what I mean? There's going to be growing pains, and there's going to be parts of the business that can be like frustrating for somebody, but it's your duty and responsibility to just be patient and make sure that they're just working on one thing at a time.
I think that's one thing companies are missing out on today when they're doing their training of their employees. I think they set aside this time frame of training, and it's a week, it's a 2 weeks, it could be a day, it could be a couple hours. And they expect those people to obtain all this wealth of information and just take notes about everything. So you can refer back to your notes. And it's like the human brain does not work that way. We're not a computer that you can just dump that information into.
Right.
It takes time and it takes repetitive to take in to make that happen. So
That's what it's like for school. Like, all my classes, they're just kind of throwing information at us, take notes, and then you got it, and we're like, what? Like, we're still stuck on, like, what did you just say? Like, we didn't even take notes, you know? It's kind of like,
you can't take notes
can't-
fast enough, honestly.
no, yeah, because they just keep spitting things out, and you're like, whoa, wait, what? Wait, what was the first thing you said? I missed a word. Oh, God darn it. You know, like, so I
But-
can,
Yeah, so you can relate to
yeah, I
that,
can relate to
for
that in
sure.
every way.
So
Just wait till you get to college.
Oh, great.
So tell us about your procrastination. Tell us about what you were going to go into for procrastination, because I have that problem. And the way I get around that problem for myself is I'm like, the things that I push back, I keep pushing back, I know are the things that are going to bite me in the butt later. So I'll be like, I just have to suck it up. I'm going to have to do it eventually anyway. I'm just going to suck it up right now and just get it done. And that's how kind of I think about it, is what's going to bite me in the butt the worst and what's going to bite me in the butt the fastest. And that's how I kind of get over it. But it sounds like you have a different like method of how to deal with procrastination.
Well, you already answered like the main thing that I would kind of discuss. Like, you just said that when you procrastinate, you have all these thoughts and all these things going on inside of your head. That's stress. You're stressing,
Yeah,
right?
constantly.
Always.
Do you,
Yeah.
do you do your best work when you're stressed?
No.
Okay.
I would know. She comes to me when she's stressed. She's like, man, I can't do this.
I'm so
Like-
exhausted. Yeah.
So if you devote procrastination isn't about just waiting until the very last second to just get as much as you possibly can done in a short amount of time, because you're going to be stressing about getting it done before you even start. So you're not going to be performing your best work. But if you learn how to manage your time and devote, maybe it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it may be, to just working on like small little like steps towards completing a task or homework or anything like that,
Oh, God.
then you're much less likely to stress about it, and you're much more likely to actually do your best job. Because if you finish and you finish in a timely manner, you can also go back and you can review that work, and then you're going to obtain a little bit more knowledge because you might find mistakes, and then that's
Right.
going to help you correct things in the future.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, because I mean, it's hard, right, to manage everything. I mean, that's one thing Maddie's learning right now is time management, how to do a podcast, how to do softball. You know, she just got back from a trip from overseas. You know, she's dealing with
I'm a little
that.
behind, but I've been catching up slowly.
Yeah.
I came back to Wednesday, and I already had like 10 assignments missing, and I was like, where did these come from? So I had to I finished them in like 2 days, like all of them, and I was like, I don't even know if, I don't know. I don't think I can, time management I'm still learning it. It's kind of hard. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think there's some things in life that people are always just going to work on, and those are like time management, how to deal with stress, those are just constants that people are always going to have to think about and learn how to deal with, because they're always going to be there. You're always going to have somebody call you. You're always going to have somebody change the game on you, that, you know, and last minute, you're always going to have to respond. It's just part of it. Just how you deal with it is how you know, is really what he's saying, is how you manage that.
If you have to read a book and it's
Oh God.
Stop it.
oh man.
I don't know. Hey. I don't like reading, but I think everyone else should read my mom's book, Unacceptable Lives. It's gonna be out soon on the website, Talk2Me podcast.com, and I really think you guys should buy it and read it.
And it's going to be available on Amazon as well.
Even though I'm not like a great reader or like reading, I think you guys should read it.
Nice.
Cole's like, what did I sign up for when I said I'd do a podcast?
Let's make the question more difficult. Let's say your mom says that you need to read her book.
Oh.
Okay.
She's waiting for the audio.
And you need to read it by tomorrow
Oh,
at the end of the day.
it's 193 pages.
Oh, that's not that bad.
Okay. So right there,
Well, then you should be able
right
to
there,
do
you
it.
already have a positive attitude about it. You're like, oh, okay, that's not that bad. That's something that I can definitely do. It's due by tomorrow.
It's like the 500 page, like the 300, 500 page ones that are like just.
I didn't write War and Peace. I wrote Unacceptable Lies.
But you should go buy right now.
So